I found this great article on Kamala Harris and all the leftist Democrats screwing with the Constitution, screwing with the Supreme Court. This is also going to involve even Ruben Gallego. There's a lot of reading, but if you want to learn something, we're going to learn something together. Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is the article, and it's a killer. First, here's a clip of Ruben Gallego.
If we're serious about protecting women, if we're serious about protecting women's right to an abortion, that must mean including reforming the filibuster and passing a national right to abortion.
You know, if someone's watching this and they're saying, okay, well, then what happens when it's a Republican in the White House and a Republican-led Senate? I mean, would you not be worried? Because, you know, Kyrsten Sinema has said, you know, that's a slippery slope if we get rid of the filibuster.
Well, look at where we are right now. And let's be clear, when the Republicans get to that point, they will do that. They've clearly been abusive of all the processes in the past. And by making this a national issue, then Republicans will have to deal every election cycle whether they're going to do this or not, and have to answer to the women of this country. And clearly, when the women speak and they vote, and their allies, men that are in support of abortion rights, it has passed in every state. So I think this is an issue that we can be proudly supportive of when it comes to women having a right to an abortion, and I don't think we have to run away from it.
So when they say reforming the filibuster, I didn't want you to miss that. They mean removing the filibuster to keep opponents from stopping Supreme Court justices from being appointed, which is already going through. Now they want to remove the filibuster in Congress. It could change the way that we make laws because they basically want to push through all these other advantages, like creating 2 new states. I believe it's Guam and Washington, D.C. They want to make into a state to pack the courts with more of their liberals. I mean, not pack the courts, but pack the House of Representatives and the Senate with more liberals to get them more votes. They're going to try and push the filibuster to be able to impeach Supreme Court justices, take a vote to see if they can pack the Supreme Court with more members. So it'll go from a body of 9 to like a body of 13 or 15. And they just throw all their people in. That's what's at stake, guys. Here's the article. The partisan hackery surrounding Supreme Court term limits. This is specifically about David French has come out. He is a allegedly hardcore Christian who is now a never Trumper and supports Kamala Harris. So he's an absolute enemy and an enemy to the church. Like what he's doing I believe, is an evil. Here's David French's defense of Kamala Harris's plan to replace the conservative Supreme Court justices can't conceal what it's about. The Supreme Court's enemies are up to no good. I'm greatly disappointed to find David French among them. David French, Christian, who went psycho. Trump made him go crazy. I think Trump might have made him lose his salvation. French's latest newsletter column is a defense of reconstructing the court. It is full of all the partisan propaganda and evasion that we have come to expect from this cause. Even after his endorsement of Kamala Harris, I had expected better from French. But this is a truth about all your Democrats that are mind broken by Trump. They get worse. They start taking on positions you never dreamed they would take on, and they start justifying them suddenly. I'm a Trump supporter. There might be something wrong with going for that guy on moral reasons, but he doesn't make me compromise my morals. I haven't caved on abortion. I'm very pro-life, even though he's softer on it than I am. I'm extremely pro-traditional marriage, even though he's softer on it. I didn't change myself to agree with him. David French just removed all of his constitutional, all of his law profession, all of his arguing, just because he hates Trump. Well, why now is the big question. The column goes off the rails right from the title. Quote, Supreme Court reform is in the air. First of all, to call Democrats' proposals reform is to take partisan sides by parroting one side's loaded talking points. That is a Democrat talking point to call it reform. It's not reform. It's obliteration. If you wouldn't describe Benjamin Netanyahu's proposals to overhaul the Israelis' judiciary as reform, you shouldn't use the term now. That's way deep in the weeds for you guys, but it has to do with him going in and dicking with their Supreme Court. These are proposals to fundamentally restructure how the United States Supreme Court has been staffed since 1789. An honest discussion would treat them as a proposal for radical change, not whitewash them with the flattering moniker of reform. Yeah, this is not a reformation. This is flatlining our government. Second, these proposals are not in the air. They're not emanating from multiple sources in different places in the partisan and ideological spectrum. In other words, they're not being discussed by mainstream people. It's not mainstream Democrats coming out and just calling it what it is. And it's not an argument out in public. These are the big brain elites doing this in their back smoky rooms. They're not generated by an impersonal history before which we must simply stand aside. We would not say that building a wall across the Mexican border is in the air. These are the specific ideological demands of one political party. They've been pushed by a particular coterie of activists, all of whom have essentially the same desired policy ends in mind. Remember, ends justify the means to a Democrat. That's called pragmatism, extreme pragmatism. Ends justify any means. They have their desired policy ends in mind. They arose out of one party's presidential primaries and its Senate Judiciary Committee members. They were on nobody's agenda until after Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh were appointed to the Supreme Court. Suddenly, this all arose when the conservatives got the majority. We heard quite a different tune in 2016 when Mark Tushnet was arguing for a triumphal march of liberal and progressive ideology through the courts on the premise that, quote, right now, for more than half of the judges sitting on the courts of appeals were appointed by Democrat presidents. So they're happy to see what's coming up in the ranks. Those judges no longer have to be worried about the reversal by the Supreme Court if they take aggressively liberal positions. An honest accounting would be frank about the fact that these proposals came about for only one reason. There's a conservative majority on the court for the first time since 1930. Thank you, Donald Trump. And liberals and progressives don't think it's legitimate for our side to ever get what their side has enjoyed in the past. That is true. True for me, but not for thee, say the Democrats. The sole reason we're talking about restructuring the Supreme Court is that liberals and progressives are unhappy with the outcomes of its decisions. That's the thing. That's the whole thing, ladies and gentlemen. It's the only thing. It's the entirety of the thing. It's 100% of the thing. There's no other thing. And if you are endeavoring now to make a purportedly conservative, or at least non-ideological, case for the restructuring, you need to first explain why it is that liberals and progressives being unhappy with the outcome is, in and of itself, a crisis. It's not a crisis. This is what happens. Why is it not a permissible result of a political process that liberals and progressives get something they dislike? Why is it not legitimate? Why specifically does it change the legitimacy of a system that was acceptable when it delivered outcomes that liberals and progressives liked? French speaks of instability and anger that harm the court and threaten the rule of law. That's right. That's French's big threat. Whose anger? Why is the anger of progressives an infallible sign that something must be given to them to assuage it? That's right. All the anger is coming from the left on the court, all the hatred. Look what they say about Clarence Thomas, that he's in all this corruption, and Sam Alito. They're evil. They're hateful and racist. Do we treat conservatives, let alone MAGA Republicans, as if the mere fact of their anger requires restructuring of the existing rules to let them win? Yeah, let the MAGA win. We're so angry. French typically treats the anger of Donald Trump's devotees, me, as a problem for the system to resist, or worse, not a cause for it to give them more of what they want. I agree, French. I'm angry, so give me what I want. That's your case for the Democrats. It took years and a bunch of election wins for liberals and progressives to dominate the court during the New Deal, and dominate it they did. The court minted vast new fields of constitutional doctrine, much of which is still with us today. They moved the legal profession, the Senate, and the political structure so far with their aggressively partisan and ideological jurisprudence that Dwight D. Eisenhower's presidency barely made a dent. And in the 1960s and 70s, the court continued its march to the left, delivering another unprecedented string of novel innovations in the law. Most of that is still with us too, even after the overturning of Roe v. Wade. That all changed, by the way, with Reagan's appointment of Scalia. Scalia was the first constructionist conservative that started this new movement, and it has continued ever since. I'll wrap this up. French complains that the purposes of lifetime tenure is supposed to be to secure judicial independence, not to secure decades of ideological advantage to the court. But one side already got those decades of ideological advantage, the liberals, and its current proposals are aimed to protecting it. French isn't proposing that liberals and progressive be made to give back the winnings of the period. Like, yeah, give back Roe v. Wade, give back all of that, the Warren Court, all those bad decisions. He doesn't want to reverse all those, but he should if he wants to be fair. So this is just another evidence of Trump madness, evidence that they've lost their mind. Kamala Harris wants to expand the court, or what they call reform the court. Anytime you hear the Democrats say it, you can go back to this episode. Now you know what they mean. Now you know why it's crazy. Now you know why it's unfair. Now you know why it's rooted in nothing, 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 but them not getting their way. The court simply is reversing them. And to them, that's a four alarm, because we're right. We're more right than Clarence Thomas. Guys, these are good times if Trump wins. If he doesn't, well, I'm going to pray for the country no matter what. Will you pray for the country? Whether if Kamala wins or Trump wins, let me know below. I'm praying no matter what. I'm Doug in exile.